When Sherry eventually tried the chocolate, she thought it was tasty. New approaches Kagenou in school while posing as a pupil. She informs him that the individual they apprehended was subjected to severe brainwashing that left him unable to provide any information. In the royal capital Rex, the game of betrayal, they confirmed the presence of a named first child according to New. Kagenou says he wants some time to reflect before walking away. At the competition, Claire triumphs in her bout with ease. Rose Oriana, the president of the student council, will take on Kagenou next. As their altercation begins, Kagenou allows himself to be hit and coughs up fake blood to demonstrate his background character method. He keeps coughing up fake blood, but he wants to go on since he has 47 more tricks to demonstrate. His tenacity astounds Oriana, who decides to take things seriously. The judge intervenes to save Kagenou as she is being attacked and declares Oriana the victor. Sherry then comes up to him, compliments him, and gives him some freshly baked cookies. Her father joins them after she informs him that they are aiming to become friends. He engages in some small talk before using his wounds as an excuse to leave. Sherry decides to go see Alexia. Sherry claims to have heard rumors linking Alexia to Kagenou and questions whether they are accurate. According to Alexia, they broke up even though they weren't dating each other and were only acting like a couple for a few reasons. Sherry departs content, but Alexia becomes irritated. When Kagenou comes to school after 5 days, he notices that people are behaving a little nicer toward him than usual. The election to fill the student council vacancy is then explained by Oriana. A masked cult knight decides to begin their scheme at the same time. He constructs a wall around the school, although it appears that only Kagenou sees it. Alexia arrives back at the school to find the gate closed and the guard dead. Kagenou observes that he cannot use magic. Then other men entered the room and announced that they were from Shadow Garden and that they were taking control of the academy. When she finds she can't use magic, Oriana chooses to fight them. One of the fictitious Shadow Garden members who is skilled in magic can break Oriana's blade with ease. He then attempts to shoot her, but Kagenou leaps and pushes her away and takes the blow before falling to the ground drenched in blood. Kagenou becomes excited as terrorists attack the academy, but when he notices that they are going to assassinate Rose, he leaps in, telling himself that as a supporting character, it's his role to be the first one to die at their hands. Rose ponders why he risked his life to save her before concluding that he must have loved her. Then the terrorists herded every student into the auditorium. Kagenou begins to strike his heart and it begins to beat once more. He reveals that it was his special method in which he maintains steady blood flow to his brain while stopping his heart for 10 minutes. When Rex reaches Sherry's room and notices the artifact in her hands, Glenn intervenes to stop him from attacking her. Glenn and Marco let Sherry flee while keeping the terrorists occupied. Kagenou is quite interested in the scene as he watches the terrorists walk around. Kagenou kills several terrorists, protecting Sherry from being apprehended or discovered. Sherry eventually stumbles, but Kagenou manages to catch her. Finding the book she was seeking, Sherry reveals that the artifact Eye of Avaris is what prevents their power from working. Any user's magic is absorbed and stored by the artifact, although certain magical frequencies can be made to ignore them. Sherry hypothesizes that the object is nearby and that if it unleashes all of its energy, it will explode and kill everyone in the auditorium. Sherry intends to access the auditorium from the basements. She will use this artifact to turn off the Eye of Avaris' explosion once she is close enough to it. Rex informs the cult knight that some of their soldiers have been eliminated by a talented individual, and he surmises that Shadow Garden is present. The cult knight warns Rex to go find the artifact or he will be killed because he still hasn't obtained it. After attacking Rex and his group, Kagenou leads Rex to a classroom where each seat is occupied by a dead terrorist. Glenn's body is discovered by New along with Marco, who is alive but unconscious. Then she goes on to say that Shadow Garden had broken inside the academy and was now awaiting orders. Currently, New can only use around half of her abilities. Kagenou requests her assistance in locating some items. He then delivers the equipment to Sherry, who begins adjusting the artifact. Sherry adjusts the object and is prepared to enter the tunnels. Sherry recounts seeing her mother's passing as a young child. She was consoled by Lutheran, who mentioned that her mother was a talented researcher and had agreed to adopt and raise her. Some of the terrorists then begin shooting the students for amusement, but Rose warns the students not to act because they won't survive without magic. As soon as Sherry enters the theater and notices that the cult knight is carrying the Eye of Avaris, she activates her artifact and turns off the magic blocking field. As the conflict begins, Kagenou and other members of Shadow Garden descend from the roof and battle the terrorists. The cult knight departs, but not before turning on a system that sets the auditorium and the rest of the school on fire. Sherry tries to flee the fire, but is unable to find her father in the auditorium. When Kagenou shows up there, he questions Lutheran's attire. Lutheran explains that after dominating the field of sword fighting, he eventually fell ill. He quickly lost the fame he had worked so hard to achieve. He then began looking for a way to treat his illness and discovered the potential of one particular artifact. He started Sherry's mother's inquiry and ultimately located the object he was looking for. The Eye of Avaris, however, was deemed harmful by Sherry's mother, who wanted to send it to the government for storage. Sherry continued her mother's studies after Lutheran killed her. However, because she hadn't noticed him, she was unaware of what had happened. Then Shadow enters the scene as Kagenou and Lutheran square off. Lutheran takes out the control unit artifact and the Eye of Avaris. He begins to feel reborn and brims with mystical energy. Then Lutheran starts hitting Shadow, but Shadow deflects his blows with ease. Shadow then takes Lutheran's weapons and starts stabbing him in the body. Then, remembering that Luther said he murdered Sherry's mother, he executes himself by being stabbed in the same manner. Sherry enters at that very moment, finds her deceased father, and immediately begins sobbing over his body. Gamma informs Alpha that although Shadow has stated he will willingly accept responsibility for all crimes, nothing will change as they will continue to carry out their mandate. Gamma is instructed by Alpha to gather the accessible 7 shadows. Sherry informs Kagenou of her decision to study abroad and expresses her gratitude for his assistance. Kagenou inquires about her desire to know him more and what she should do. She informs him it's a secret after a little pause. Kagenou chooses to remain in the dorm, but quickly discovers he has nothing to do there either. In a letter, Alpha informs Kagenou that to settle some outstanding debts, he must travel to the holy region of Lindworm. Beta begins to write a book on how Shadow protected a woman from Zin and Griffey, but she quickly grows impatient and chooses to go outside for some fresh air. When Beta and Epsilon first meet, she confesses that Shadow has been staring at her, particularly her chest. Epsilon claims that because both women have enormous busts, they are more conscious of these kinds of glances, something Beta is unwilling to believe. To get ready for Alexia's trip to the Sacred Land, Iris and Alexia go to Gamma's store. When Gamma first encounters them, Luna introduces herself. Gamma displays some thongs and pants for them. Iris is against them since they hardly cover anything and the males like them, but Alexia likes them and is sure she would look fine in them. Rose hurried to find Kagenou after learning that he was still alive following the terrorist attack. She discovered him dressed in bandages and claimed that because of his intense love for her, he must have miraculously survived. Later, Rose is clutching Kagenou as they ride a train together toward the Sacred Lands. Rose continues by saying that those who are blessed by the goddess might even find love with the princess. She will discuss the letter with her father if he receives it. As Kagenou approaches Lindworm, he notices some keychains depicting a sword cutting a left demonic arm. Rose observes an author signing by Natsume. They crew up since Rose is a huge admirer of her. When Kagenou looks at the names of several of her books, he immediately understands that they have been stolen, and he assumes that someone else has been reborn. To his amazement, he recognizes Beta as Natsume, who made use of his insight to become well-known. Kagenou is shown Rose's book, which Rose claims has Natsume's name inscribed on it. She wonders what letter Natsume sent Kagenou, but is taken aback by the fact that it was written in an ancient language. While standing beside Archbishop Drake's body, Alpha questions why a person of such a great position was even killed. A man attempts to harm Kagenou, but Epsilon kills him. She informs Kagenou that the executioner of the cult killed the target. They captured his goons, but the murderer fled. They'll switch to Plan B while staying at Lindworm. Kagenou goes to a hot spring. Alexia has also unexpectedly come. According to Alexia, she is a special guest at the goddess trial. It is a yearly ritualistic fighting event according to Alexia. She was going to do an audit with the Archbishop when he was assassinated. Kagenou isn't interested, but she can tell him more if he joins the Crimson Knights. Alexia expected Kagenou to be looking at her, but he isn't even doing that. For everyone to unwind and enjoy their baths, Kagenou notes that he avoids glancing at other visitors at the hot springs. The new acting Archbishop Jack Nelson cancels the audit with Alexia's help and claims that she was there investigating the previous Archbishop. But now that he's gone, they'll be investigating. Alexia, disguised as Natsun Kafta, is sitting next to Beta as the goddess trial gets underway. Alexia and Beta are not happy with one another. The first rival is top batteries, a company from the Oriana Kingdom. You didn't enter the arena's boundary if a warrior was called until one of them was beaten, two people say. He is followed by next in line of the Midgar Knight Order, but no warriors are with him. Kagenou wants to go on the journey with Shadow so he can show off his skills and showcase who he is. The following person is still ain't happening from the Logos Vigilant Corps. He tries to phone someone along with a few others, but they are unable. The next contestant will be Kagenou, who is getting anxious and expects the trial will be over soon, the speaker says. After that, Shadow is followed by someone else who surprises Jack because he didn't invite them. Beta recognizes the person as Aurora, the Witch of Calamity, but due to the chaos and destruction she caused, little is known about her. Jack claims that summoning her was a mistake on the part of Shadow because she is the most powerful witch in history. As they come face to face, Aurora and Shadow smile ecstatically at each other. Shadow is initially just keeping an eye on everything and dodging all of Aurora's attacks. While enjoying it, he observes that Aurora is unable to employ all of her abilities. After defeating her with a knife, he laments that he wishes he could have used all of his strength to combat her. When Shadow finally leaves, everyone is shocked by his triumph. A mysterious portal is then revealed in the arena's center when the barrier finally gives way. A weird gate appears when Kagenou defeats the witch Aurora. Kagenou decides to enter the gate in order to find out where it leads because he fears that it might follow him home. The stadium's sanctuary gate likewise appears in the background, and the spectators are then instructed to leave. The Shadow Garden sneaks in while there are just Alexia, Iris, Nelson, and a few guards there. Nelson is made to walk with them through the sanctuary after they overpower the guards. In an effort to understand what is going on, Alexia and Iris also accompany the Shadow Garden. When Alpha enters the sanctuary, she informs everyone there that this is where tradition has it that the arm of the demon Diabolos was imprisoned. The acting Archbishop is startled when Alpha opens the large gate directly in front of her. She explains that there used to be a significant battle there. The moment the magical energies of the demon and the soldier spiral together, the vortex in the sanctuary shut away all memory. Because of this, the location has actually been transformed into a repository for old resentments and memories that Alpha wishes everyone to discover together. After everything is suddenly consumed by a bright white light, Nelson, Iris, and Alexia discover themselves staring back in time to a time when the cult had gathered orphaned youngsters there for their bizarre and horrific experiments. Only a few of the girls who were subjected to these cruel trials as kids survived. Only Olivier was found to be compatible with the Diabolos cells despite the cult's desperate attempts to implant them in infants. Then Alpha admits that the objective given to her was to gather more cells even when Olivier got stronger. The beads of Diabolos were pills that gave people incredible strength and anti-aging abilities. Sadly, the medications had two critical defects. Nelson admits Alpha to the Order of Diabolos after he has fully exposed the cult. Delta stabs him in the back before he has a chance to react, causing his body to fall into the river. Nelson comes out of the water. The sanctuary is once more completely swallowed by the white light, and then he manages to create multiple duplicates of himself.